want to talk more about the small business world, though, because of course, small business is very much in focus these days. And just yesterday, in fact, we got the Small Business Optimism Index. That report from NFIB Research is released on a monthly basis, and it paints a picture as to how small business owners are feeling across the board from an inflation standpoint and a job standpoint. It's actually declined the past 4 months. Well, joining me now with more is Holly Wade, Executive Director of NFIB Research Center. Holly, good to see you this morning. Every month we check in. And what changed in April when it came to small business sentiment?
So as you mentioned, the index has declined over the last 4 months. The last 2 months in particular, now we're below the 51-year average for the index, mainly due to expectations on business conditions going forward and also sales expectations. In April this last month, the dominant declines that contributed to the index were job openings fell off a bit and also business conditions outlook. So those two were the main contributors to the decline in the index.
How much did changes in trade policy, especially in April 2nd, this particular report would have captured those higher than expected reciprocal tariffs? How did those play in?
So our survey was out for the whole month of April, so it did capture a bit of what was announced at the beginning of the month, last month, and a lot of uncertainty among small business owners. Certainly some are directly hit by the impact of the tariffs, the higher tariffs, and essentially that trade embargo on Chinese imports. But for those who are indirectly impacted or don't know yet how they will be impacted, they're bracing themselves for, a bit of a shock to see if it impacts supply chain disruptions. So they're pulling back on investments in their business, whether that's related to hiring plans or capital spending.
Interesting. And how do you anticipate that these small businesses are prepared to navigate what could be an environment where we still see, with a 90-day tariff pause, questions about trade policy moving forward?
Well, with the 90-day pause for Chinese imports, that certainly gives them a break to recalibrate how they want to proceed forward if they are being directly hit. So it gives them some room to move those inventories to the U.S. If they're able to absorb a 30% tariff. That's still a high cost increase for a lot of small business owners, but at least it gives them some breathing room to try and figure out how best to proceed. However, there's still a lot of uncertainty related to what this looks like post this pause and how they can adjust business conditions and business operations to accommodate for maybe what to come. So I'm sure they're planning out a lot of different scenarios to best position themselves.
How do interest rates play into this picture? Because we've seen the Fed chair note recently, Holly, in early May, that he doesn't intend to be patient when it comes to bringing down rates. Of course, we know that lower rates do mean cheaper borrowing costs, which can help businesses, including small businesses, grow.
Certainly. So interest rates, we know that is a major cost impact for a lot of small business owners who are either financing capital spending projects, expanding their business. But for the most part right now, we've seen a bit of hesitation with regular borrowers, the number of regular borrowers we see with small business owners. So I think in conjunction with higher interest rates and also bracing for higher costs of those inventory and supplies, they're really holding back on borrowing and those finance costs anywhere that they can try and limit the cost pressures to their business. They're doing. Certainly don't want to pass up opportunities to expand their business, but there is some hesitation out there.
One of the biggest items on the horizon as trade policy unfolds, and of course is negotiated between the White House and, let's say, 18 of our key trading partners that they've identified, simultaneously is a bill making its way through Congress that House Majority Leader Steve Scalise told me here at the Exchange he hopes to deliver to the president by Memorial Day weekend. And that would lower taxes. That would extend those tax cuts. That would change spending as well. How are small businesses planning for that?
Well, they're certainly very concerned that they're expecting Congress to pass those provisions, extend and make permanent those provisions that were in the Tax Cut and Jobs Act from 2017. Specifically, that 20% small business deduction, the 20% on qualifying business income, that's been so helpful for small business owners in retaining their profits to reinvest in their business. So without this bill, they're going to experience a large tax hike at the end of this year. And this was one of their big expectations for Congress and the administration, to make sure that they are that they're confident that this will pass, and sooner the better, so that business owners can at least get that level of concern off the table and focus on their business. But the tax bill is the highest priority for many small business owners that would be severely impacted if this did expire and they did experience a tax increase at the end of the year.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of reports that a lot of business owners have been ramping up inventory throughout the year, of course, to account for tariffs. Holly Wade joining us remotely. Holly, thank you so much, as always, in our nation's capital. That's where she joins from. She is the director of NFIB Research, the executive director, I should say. Holly, thank you.
Thank you.